Steve, I have not been able to cut the grass because it just keeps raining.
It is. You got to squeeze it in when you can. I got lucky and got it between the raindrops, I think. We'll see.
Okay. Proud of you. I forget what else I was going to tell you. The start of this week's show. There's something else I was going to tell you. It'll come to me later. The name of this show is called the Stuff Summer Says Podcast with
Steve,
and we go into uncharted territory, if you will. Our first ever golf focused episode, or I mean, we'll talk about some other stuff that relates to Penn State, but we've never had an episode where we've really spent a lot of time talking about golf. I'm excited to do it. We had a great conversation with Penn State alum and golf.com writer, editor Jack Hirsh. He covers equipment, and it is a fascinating conversation. And you know, I've enjoyed reading him for quite a while, but it was a really neat conversation. So listen to that. And then Penn State's in the news today, in the sports business media news today, and we we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that because it's a fascinating saga playing out in front of our eyes. And I have a surprise segment, and I told Steve that it's not stressful, and I promise that it is not stressful. I want his authentic reaction to the question that I have. So that is why I'm making it a surprise.
Can't wait. This is great.
And then we have okay. Cool. So listen to our interview with Jack, and we will be back after this. Steve, we venture into uncharted waters, uncharted territory today. I don't think we have ever done a golf show.
Well, it's overdue then.
Yes. And I'm very glad that we have our guest to bring in a new era, if you will, of golf coverage on the Stuff Summer Says Media
toss me the
Network.
wheel.
Yeah, there we go. Our guest today is Mr. Jack Hirsh. He is a proud Penn State alum. He is a associate equipment editor for golf.com for the last 3 years. In my Twitter feed, no one posts more, tweets more, thinks more, breathes more golf than this man. So in honor of the U.S. Open hitting Oakmont this weekend, I'm happy that you're here.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to finally be on Stuff Summer Says. I mean, this is uncharted territory for me.
Big time, I know.
But golf and Penn State collide right here.
Perfect. Yes.
Good combination.
We will get to all that. So you are a collegiate alum, as we were chatting before. Just missed each other by about a semester, so to speak. But I want to know. Let's start at the beginning for you with golf. Why are you so passionate about golf?
That's an easy question. Golf put bread on my family's table. My dad is also in the golf industry, and actually recently my brother just got into the golf industry, albeit two very niche things. My dad's a real estate appraiser for golf courses.
Wow.
So yeah, he kind of created his own thing. He's, it's pretty much he's probably like the guy on golf course. He's done, I could round off a list of names that if you know golf, you know these golf courses, and he's done work with them. So that was kind of how I got introduced to the game. Grew up at a country club in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, moved outside of Philly, I was 13. Obviously, a little different dichotomies there. And then, went out and did local TV for a little bit, and knew, I always wanted to get back to golf, and happened a lot quicker than I thought, thankfully.
So I was going to ask, was writing about golf always a goal, or covering golf in terms of your career path always a goal for you?
Yeah, I think covering golf was always the idea. I think when I was in college, I always wanted to do it for like CBS or NBC or ESPN, one of these rights holders. But I quickly kind of found out that I really wanted to be in golf. And when I go back to I go back to Penn State a lot, and I'm on the Alumni Society board, as Steve knows. And when I meet with kids, I like to tell them, go do what you want to do. And what I wanted to do was cover golf, not be on TV. I thought I wanted to be on TV to then cover golf, but it was the other way around.
That makes sense. So how does one become what I think is one of the most fascinating job titles we've had on this podcast, the associate equipment editor? How does one kind of pick that niche? Because you mentioned that your dad is a niche aspect, your brother's in a niche aspect, but equipment editor is also a niche aspect.
Very. And so like I've always been fascinated by golf clubs. There was this commercial for the R9 driver back in 2019 that kind of kicked it off. It was the first driver that you could unscrew the head off and change the way the shaft went into the club, which changed the loft and other things and how the club sits. And I was like so wowed by this. I had to have, I got a used one the next year. And and that was kind of it. My dad's always tinkered with clubs. He taught me how to reshaft and regrip and bend clubs and work on club repair in our basement. Um, he likes to joke he's the only real estate appraiser with a loft and lime digital loft and lime machine in his basement. Um, so I always was into equipment, and then when I was in Oregon doing local TV, and I was kind of getting fed up with my job, and I started looking around. And it's funny you say, how does somebody get into this? Well, I was listening to a podcast, and it was the golf.com fully equipped podcast. Obviously I contribute to that now, and I run this I run the Instagram, ironically. But the I was listening to the podcast, and the number two writer was leaving. They were announcing he was like leaving, and the managing editor for equipment at the time, a guy named Jonathan Wall, who's now with Golf Digest, said, "I can't believe I'm going to say this, but we're putting this job on LinkedIn. So if you want to apply, reach out on LinkedIn." And he's like, "You're going to get so many crazy things." So I happen to know a very well-known golf writer for Golf Magazine named Michael Bamberger, who was a member at my club, the club I was at in Philadelphia. He connected me with Jonathan. I did a couple interviews. I did one with Jonathan, one with my now current boss, and then didn't hear anything for a couple months. And I'm like, okay. I started reaching out to other TV jobs, and it got to the point where these other TV jobs asked me out of my contract in Oregon. I was still under contract for almost another year and a half, but I wanted to leave. And that's just kind of industry practice in that industry, as I'm sure a lot of the listeners to this podcast know. Um, and I asked out of my contract with my station, and they came back to me a week later and said no. And you know what? Things happen for a reason. I can't remember if it was that day or the next day, but I got an email from my now current boss that was like, "Hey, we want to do a couple more interviews." We did two more interviews. Then I didn't hear anything for a little while. And then they told me they had hired the position for the equipment editor, but they really liked me. They wanted to bring me on in a more general news role. So that happened like a month or two later. And I moved back to Philadelphia, did that role for 2 years. And then there was a new media company that came out in the golf space last summer called Scratch. They hired away Ryan, who originally took that gear job, and then they promoted me from within to the gear beat. And we've had another change at the top with Jonathan moved on to Golf Digest. We hired Johnny Wonder from Callaway to lead our gear staff. We've also added a Chris McCormick from our sister company True Spec, which is a golf club fitting company. So we have a really, really good team now. So I've been doing this about 8 months. This is right now I'm, talking to you from the Phoenix airport, where I now come to Phoenix a lot because we have a headquarters for all the companies that do commerce and club fitting are in Phoenix. So I come here a lot, but I'm actually on my way to Carlsbad, where basically all of the golf equipment manufacturers are. So.
So what will happen in Carlsbad? You're covering the equipment beat, right? The gear beat.
Mhm.
Are people pitching you stuff? Are you reviewing stuff? Like, how does that all work out?
So a lot of it is just getting familiarization. Like that is a big deal. It's like if I want going to talk about a golf club, I would like to go get fitted for it and understand what it does for me, how it compares to stuff I know. Um, so that's one thing. I mean, it's tough timing because this week obviously is the U.S. Open, and being on the East Coast for a West Coast U.S. Open is great. I'm not looking forward to being on the West Coast for an East Coast U.S. Open, but we'll see how that works out. I'll probably be getting up in the mornings, doing some work, being fed from the ground in Oakmont. And then we'll be going to a couple stops. We are not actually grabbing any content this trip. Typically, it's a lot of, how does TaylorMade fit for drivers, or how does Titleist fit for irons, and different things like that. So we're going to be doing a lot of familiarization. Basically, there is a company, a lot of the stuff that actually almost everything that I'm gonna, see. These next 4 days, I can't tell you about. It's one of the cool things of my job. I have so many things on my phone that I cannot show you, which I think is really cool. And uh, but the main one company invited us out because they are releasing a very significant product in July. Um, so we are going to get fitted for that product, and I'm going and as basically in our trio of three, my job is to cover the tour and cover launches of new products. So I'm going to be getting fit for the new products so then I can write about it and speak about it intelligently, and like what the differences are from the previous models, and what's it, and is it going to go in my bag, and different things like that. It's a very personal um thing, because it's like, you know, golf clubs are a very personal thing. What will work for me may not work for anybody else, and it's, telling my story is kind of the best we can do. I can't tell you that this club is going to make you hit it higher, because it might make you hit it lower. It's just the way golf clubs are. There's so many variables,
Okay,
and everybody's different.
I have
How
follow
good
up.
does your game? So do I. But let me get
Go
mine
ahead,
first.
go
I'll
ahead,
get along.
Steve. Yes.
How good does your game have to be that you can
Yeah.
tell if something's better or not? Right? Like, because
No, no,
for me,
as
a club's not going to make a difference because I
Yeah,
suck.
this
Right?
is what I was
so
wondering.
that's not true. So that's not the first of all, it's my job to tell you that that's not true. A club fitting is probably going to do a club fitting is probably going to do more for you than it might even do for me. Because the difference is for me, because like my gear is already pretty dialed. If it's not perfect for me, it's pretty damn close. Because I've worked with so many fitters now in just the past 8 months. I've just doing this job, I've changed my setup completely. I just wrote last week I ended up getting fit for a putter that was the complete opposite of what I had been using, and it's really, really been a game changer for me. But there's still different things I can tweak. Um, so I mean, there have been people that do this job that are, around a, scratch or two handicap, which is what I play to right now. And there are people who do this job who are 15 handicaps. I would argue that the golf club, getting fit for golf clubs, is probably the most overlooked thing when it comes to beginners. And now I understand that it's a huge financial burden, but I think getting proper golf clubs is the biggest thing preventing beginners from really getting into it.
Okay. So my follow-ups then, you mentioned the financial aspect. Does this cost you anything? And when you say you get fitted, are you test driving these things? And what does that test drive potentially look like? Are you taking them out in on a round? Or are you taking them to a driving range? What is involved with that?
So yes, I wish I had a current picture of my office, but I have more golf clubs than anybody you know. And my dad hoards golf clubs, and he likes to joke that in 8 months I've collected more golf clubs than he's ever had before. I have a set of golf clubs that I consider, like, if I got to go out tomorrow and shoot a number, that's the set of golf clubs I use. But I also have three other golf bags just ready to go that I just take out. If I'm not trying to work on something, I'll just take those clubs out and go play with them and kind of see what happens. Because they're all different, and they all do different things and make me have to play different ways. Um, do I pay for any of it? No.
Okay. Which makes sense. And I guess why I use the word test drive, this actually almost sounds to a degree similar to what auto writers do, where they'll take a car out and spin it around, and give it a go. So for you, when you are properly fitted, what are you looking for, and what are you telling the reader? How are you relaying that to the reader?
That's where the creative part of this job comes in, because it's kind of hard to. say, well, this does this and this does that, because it's, again, everybody is different. That the thing we have, in in a in an effort to kind of simplify the industry, we've been color coding, let's just say, your driver shafts. You know, black or white typically means a shaft that's designed to launch the ball lower for someone who can easily get the ball in the air, typically a good player. Blue is your mid launch, and red um, is your high launch. For instance, I'm somebody who launches the ball very high, hit the ball very, very high. That's never been a problem for me. I'm actually working on getting it lower. I play a high launch golf shaft because that, for me, that shaft launches the ball lower. So it's kind of explaining things like that. And then, like, what am I looking for? I'm like, how does this look? To me, this looks like this. To you, it might look something different. So it involves me taking a lot of pictures. I have to haul a camera around everywhere. Um, because I'm like, okay, this is what it looks like to me. Here's what it is. Like, you make your observations. That's a good one. Feel is a very subjective thing. Feel and sound are very important. Um, and those are uh, you kind of have to compare to what you've seen previously from this brand. Um, that's one thing. And then that's again where you can get a little creative with your language, like buttery smooth or really firm. And then just looking at performance and numbers, like, is this club, and you try to make a lot of apples to apples comparisons. Like, is this club, like, same shaft length, lie, um, grip, and all that, same everything? How does this compare to what I've been playing or this club? Just looking at performance. How far does it carry? How much does it spin? Those are the numbers I think people look at. Real gear nerds, like, it's like, oh, well, Jack spun the T100 more than his 243 or something like that.
So it's a highly personal thing. What kind of, for you, right? You're telling your story. It might not fit. What kind of feedback do you hear from people, and do people care? Like, oh, obviously they care because they're interested in that. But what kind of feedback and reaction do you hear from people, if any, about how you're sharing it? Like, say, oh, I played it, and it worked for me too, or to build some, I guess, gravitas and trust, I guess, is where
Yeah.
it was going.
I'm still fairly new at this, so that's still coming. But yeah, it is really cool. Like, for instance, I went, one of the stories I do like, this is what I just recently started doing, like, this is what I've been doing with my bag piece. And it's like, here's what I was just doing with irons. Here's what I just did with putters. I just did a hybrid last week. So a couple weeks ago, I wrote how the irons I was using, I love them. They were probably, it's like, they probably, like, this is going to sound silly, but they probably go a little too far. And I still have them in my bag. They probably go a little too far than I want to and don't stop quick enough. So I tried the same company, came out with a new set of irons. And this is the company Mizuno, that I've used their irons since I was in the 10th grade, or even earlier than that. Um, so I know them, and I know and I know, like, what they should feel like. And so I tried to use these clubs, and they were just a little bit on the other side of the spectrum. They were a little bit too hard to hit, not so forgiving. So, and somebody wrote, you know, I tried the same thing and got the same result. And I talked to um, the uh, the director of product for Mizuno. He said, same thing happened to me. It's like, it's really cool to kind of, you think you're the only one trying this, and everybody, it's like, yeah. And then, of course, I write about these irons and say I went back to my old ones. And then that's when, I don't know if you're, Ben Griffin, playing in the Max Fly ball from Dick's in Pittsburgh, um, won that weekend. And he plays those Mizuno irons that I tried and didn't like. And I'm like, yep, different strokes for different folks.
Very cool.
But that's why a big core of my job is, like, I can write all this stuff about my experiences. Doesn't mean anything unless you go and get fit like I did.
This is so interesting. I'm so glad we did this. Okay. I want to ask, you said you're going to cut, even if you'll be out west, you're going to help cover the event, the US Open this weekend. How does that work? What are you looking for? What are you paying attention to as opposed to somebody that's just going to write the piece that here's how Rory went out and won the event.
Yep. Well, I don't know if that'll happen
Well,
right
but
now, but so my boss Johnny Wonder is on the ground there, and he is one of the more connected people in the game, and the one of the reasons I'm like so happy to be working with him is that he wants me to get to that point as well. So he really wants me to do his job so he doesn't have to anymore. Which, like he's 48, he's got 2 kids, he wants to spend as much time with them. You know, great, I'm down for that. Um, so he is down on the ground, basically looking in, and he knows a lot of players really well. So he can just walk up to somebody and start looking in their bag and they won't question it. So he's looking for what guys are changing, what guys are doing, how are they planning for the course. A big thing we saw at the PGA Championship, it was really wet and the conditions were very soft. So a lot of guys were taking and using wider soles on their wedges. That was a story. A lot of guys were adding high lofted fairway woods because they were easier to get out of the rough. This week at Oakmont, I think we're trying to see how much rain they get tonight. And I think a lot of players are anxious to see what that happens because typically at a US Open, you have a very dried out setup. And that leads to a lot of guys wanting to play a club off the tee that they can hit very low and get it to chase out and run really far. So we're seeing who's adding driving irons. You don't see a lot of changes necessarily. Like rarely will you see a guy put in a new driver in a major. We're going to see it this week with Rory McIlroy. Excuse me. So we are paying attention to what he's doing with his driver because he obviously had a driver fail a conformance test at the PGA Championship, which happens all the time. But then he's struggled to find a backup, and he tried the new driver this past week that TaylorMade's got, and it didn't really work out so well. He missed the cut, so be really interested to see what he does. Kind of stories like that. And then also the wrinkle of the U.S. Open is there's so many people who are you haven't heard of. There's it's the most democratic of majors. Guys can anyone with a certain handicap can sign up, play, and get 3 hot rounds and end up in the U.S. Open. So kind of paying attention to some of their bags, and maybe you'll see something that you've never seen before or haven't seen in 10 years and things like that. So it's cool stories like that. So Johnny's going to be sending that back to me, and I'll be doing that either early in the morning or late at night. And we'll be scanning, every press conference is transcribed. Scan that. Does anybody talk about a golf club or start giving praise to a golf club or saying they changed something, and then going from there and texting reps and seeing what the story is. When I say rep, the guys on tour who are fitting them.
How many of those guys are there? How many fitters travel with the tour?
There's a lot more than you would think. So the way it works with most companies is guys are kind of potted with one fitter, and then there's other guys like maybe who they're sponsored by this company but they want to play the driver of this company, so they work with this fitter. So like for instance, Scotty Scheffler, Tommy Fleetwood, who else does AD work with? He works with Morikawa. They all work with a guy named Adrian Reedveld at TaylorMade. Roy McIlroy, Tiger Woods, they work with a guy named Keith Sabarbaro at TaylorMade. There's JJ Van Wiesenbeck for Titleist. There's a lot of guys a lot of the top guys at Ping, like Victor Hovland, work with why is a name blanking for me? Kent Notes from Ping. And so there, how many fitters? Some companies have bigger staffs than others. Like Titleist has a lot of fitters. Most of them I haven't met yet. TaylorMade has, I think, 3 or 4. So it kind of really depends on. I would say there's probably 20 guys at any given tour event, if not more.
Okay.
They're taking care of the guys that are sponsored by the brand, like the guys sponsored, and they're also taking care of guys who aren't sponsored because, if they sometimes guys playing equipment non-contract is almost a bigger deal than guys playing contracted equipment. they love to advertise, well, 14 guys are playing our driver on non-contract. It's like 82% of the PGA Tour plays a Titleist golf ball, or 62%. I forget the number, but it's remarkably high, and most of them are not paid to play that golf ball.
A journalist, a sports writer might say, hey, I'm rooting for deadline. I'm rooting for something to finish on time, to be whatever else. What does a golf gear guy root for? Like when what do you hope it happens?
What happened with Rory McIlroy at the PGA Championship? That put a lot of spotlight on driver testing, and that is testing for how much the face flexes, and over time, because tour pros hit it so hard and they hit the same place every time, the driver wears out and it'll become faster and faster until it fails. And it's not a huge advantage, really, and it happens all the time. But people didn't seem to realize that um, at the PGA Championship 4 weeks ago. So we were doing a lot of education about that. So that's really good. Guys winning with new stuff. People love new stuff and prototypes. Titleist has got their prototype irons out on the PGA Tour right now. TaylorMade's got some prototype wedges on the PGA Tour. Guys winning with that stuff is great. Justin Thomas, excuse me, Justin Thomas won with a prototype driver shaft 2 months ago, and that was, a lot of people were interested in that. So that kind of stuff really does well. But yeah, I mean, I think any sports journalist loves controversy. That's great for business. So
Love this.
Yeah,
Love this.
cool.
All right, Jack, as you take a sip of water there, to give you a second to prepare. I want to get you out of here because you have a flight to catch. For those watching on YouTube, he is in the Admiral's Lounge right now, which is also a first for this podcast. I love it. So, Jack, I want to know.
Yeah, we got the free ad behind me.
Perfect. There you go. Gotta make sure you boost those American points however you can. Here's what I want to know, Jack. You are the czar of Penn State sports for one day. What big change are you making?
Oh man, the czar of Penn State. Wow. I mean, this is probably not the most popular opinion, but I would love to get the golf teams a real indoor practice facility, and I think a real indoor practice facility that I've seen a lot of other teams have. Obviously, Penn State golf is not the most storied program that we have, but I know there's been some, and you know what? Actually, I would add to that. I would love a full scale renovation of the blue and white golf courses, because I think they're pretty weak compared to a lot of our competition in the Big Ten. Definitely compared to some of the courses in the South. The blue course is just not very architecturally interesting, as far as I know. The architect of record for the blue course is the Penn State OPP, which I don't believe they had anybody who really knew about a golf course. That 20-year master plan that was passed when I was a freshman, I believe there was something in there about the golf course, and I believe there was an architect hired. It's been, 9 years now. I haven't heard anything about that since. But I would love to hear. I would love to hear more about that. I would love to see. I would love to see the Penn State golf courses get some love, because there's some great people working there. And there's been a lot of talented players through there as well. We just had Patrick Sheehan playing a PGA Tour event earlier this year. And I know we got a bunch of guys on the Corn Ferry Tour trying to make it big. So
good answer. First golf answer for us.
Yeah, that's first golf. And I will say,
well, I figured,
here's how I know it needs renovated. It's the only course that I have ever broken 100 on. So it might be a little too
blue
easy.
or white.
The blue course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The white course I love the white course. It's just too short to host a modern college event.
Right.
For the men. The women have recently done it. I know, and Coach Denise St. Pierre is one of her final years. They played the Nittany Lion Invitational over on the white course, and that golf course is really, really fun. That's designed by Willie Park Jr., a very famous architect, and or at least most of the holes were designed by him. Both golf courses have changed so much over the years, but I'd really like to see that be a real. It's a great piece of ground, and it could be a really good golf course
Cool.
in better condition.
Cool.
Too.
Your go-to creamery ice cream flavor?
It used to always be mint Nittany. I'm trying to expand my horizons. I've been trained. Real shameful admission here. I only tried Alumni Swirl for the first time last year.
Sure.
Like, blew my mind. So great. I mean, I'll just say mint Nittany, keep it simple, but love Alumni Swirl. Love. I got last time I was there, I got a tub of whiteout. Whiteout's so underrated.
It's one of my favorites, and people don't give it enough credit.
Grilled sticky is unbelievable, and that's like something you're never going to get anywhere else. And the cookie dough, also really, really good.
It appears that Jack knows creamery ice cream just
You
as
got
well.
several spoonfuls there in one answer.
Yeah, just as well as he knows golf clubs. Okay, last question. You're back in town for one night and one night only. What bar are you stumbling into?
Pickles.
Okay.
Pickles. No question.
You can tell there's a broadcast comm kid who wants to go to Pickles. That is the way we tell them apart.
Right. Yeah, Pickles. I was, like I said, I was there in April, and I was like, why isn't the painkiller on the menu? And then I saw it's like permanently on the specials board now. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then they handed it to me in the tall glass. I'm like, I'm not 30 yet here, guys. I'm like, I want it in the plastic. I want it with a ton of alcohol. Yeah.
I love that.
You look mature. They're trying to help you out.
Yeah, I guess.
All right, Jack. Where can people find you, your stuff, your work, all of that?
Well, most of my work's on golf.com. Best domain name in the business. Social media, I'm on Instagram mostly. I'm still on Twitter for now. That is at JR_Hershey, spelled like Hershey chocolate, but with an I instead of the first E. And my name is really difficult for many people to spell, Hirsh. People want to throw a C in there. People want to throw an E in there. But yeah, it's just Hirsh with an EY at the end. Those are two best places to find me.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. Hopefully your safe travels is on your voyage
thank
here.
you guys.
Thank you very much.
Hope to see you up in State College very soon.
Steve, that was one of legitimately the most interesting, fascinating, eye-opening interviews we've done. Like, I learned so much there, and it was just so neat. It was a very neat wealth of knowledge that Jack shared with us there.
And I love too, especially, and it's been several years he's doing this, that Jack has been laser focused on golf his whole time. Like I knew him as a student, and golf was his interest. If they were covering a story, they went to Europe for an international reporting class, and he wrote stories about golf, right? Like, I mean, again, they went to the British Open, so she should be writing about that. But he has stayed focused on what it was. It's clearly his passion. It carries through in what he does, and it certainly serves the people that are reading it and consuming it because he cares so much.
It's funny. I joked with him that like he eats, sleeps, and breathes golf, but like he.
It's not true. Yeah, he was having hummus.
Well, yeah, that's true. He was having hummus, but he's like, to me, he is like now become the vessel that I am getting golf information through. And I think what's so interesting is like golf is probably the only sport that has that, and I like that he kind of handles it in both directions. He handles it on the professional level about why and how a professional, wins with this club or this golf ball, etc. But then he's also there to kind of be more, lack of a better term, consumer focused. And I think that's very interesting because there's not really any other sport. It's not like football equipment. There's varying equipment, but it's not like it changes the way you or the football player plays that much. Hockey, relatively same way. Obviously, like sticks and skates can kind of vary, but not the same way that the golf club. So I thought that was really interesting. And I think you can tell that going back to his passion, like you can tell he's like, this is his dream job or this is a job he's very excited about.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think it's great. Getting fitted for football isn't going to make me better, but my brother tells me all the time I should have better clubs. So
I have long thought that
Second
was
source
always
for
the
that.
problem with my game as well.
there you go.
So okay. Let's dive into the house settlement, which, as Pav correctly predicted, was finalized.
I texted
on
him. I felt so bad.
Friday.
I texted him.
I
and
hope
said,
he
"I'm
at least
sorry."
got to the beach, or
He was. He was at the beach. I said,
Okay.
"Sorry, your vacation's getting ruined by the house settlement." So, but he was prescient about it. He was,
I hope he at least got to relax a little bit before it dropped. I think former podcast guest Matt Brown also had a good point. Like, not much is like changed in terms of our understanding of it, right? Like, it's still like how the settlement is done, but like we've known what's going to happen, or knew how it's going to happen. What has become so interesting and so fascinating to me is like questions that you and I have been talking about, and we even like I reached out on today, like what happens with Happy Valley United if kind of NIL collectives are effectively sort of going away, and what's their role kind of in this new era? What does this look like in terms of the roster limits? What does this look like in terms of athletes that are getting cut, or what's going to happen with them? There's so much now that we all collectively were just waiting for the settlement to get done that we all now have to think about. And I am curious how this is going to end up impacting fans. And I don't think this is going to impact fans. I think that the trickle down is going to be slowest or lowest to fans. I think it probably impacts administrators and then athletes and coaches pretty much all simultaneously. But I think we're probably, I don't want to say years away because I don't know that. I don't believe that either. I think we're maybe months away from really kind of understanding and seeing what the impact is there. And in some ways, we're already dealing with the repercussions as fans with the legacy fund, which was kind of the way that Penn State is trying to offset the additional costs that they're going to take. Yeah, that's about where I'm at with it. I don't think the sky is falling.
No, it wasn't a codification. It was a level setting of where we're at now, right? Here's your roster limits, here's your money, and all the schools and conferences, right? Depending on how it works and what conference or school you're at, get to depend on how they're going to move forward, right? What percentage is getting spent on football and basketball? If you're Penn State, some get spent on wrestling. If you're some other school down south in the sports big, you're getting spending on that said sport. What will fall out, our friend Coach Pavlik from men's volleyball, what happens with that? How many roster spots will Penn State commit to? How will they be funded? And that happens to all the other sports. Pick them, like even wrestling isn't going to have 30. I mean, I'd be surprised, right? So what does that do? And then nationally getting legislative support, which they're trying to do to keep, everybody in the same playing field, right? To make sure they get those opportunities. So it's the end. There's a national rule, not like each state challenging something along the way. And that stuff's going to happen. So no, it wasn't I was glad it was over and done and settled. Felt bad for Pav. Feel bad for all the coaches right now who are struggling with this, right? Figuring out rosters, knowing what's going on. There are other parts of it that will get me less interested in college sports depending on how they play out.
Such as?
I don't know. Say you need extra money to make your program run and you decide to get investors from the outside, then it becomes a lot less interesting to me.
Okay, that's a good segue. Welcome to the chaos that was today for Penn State and UCLA, allegedly. So let's back up. This morning, I had saw, and I should have set the gear in motion. I saw the news about that there was 2 schools that had invested in private equity fund, or been invested in by private equity firms. And I think for some reason, and maybe Wogo kind of alerted me to this when he was doing some stuff today. It just felt like Penn State was going to be involved. And sure enough, allegedly, maybe allegedly, Penn State was involved. I think let's go back to the Pat Kraft message that we got on Friday, because, it was Friday. Yeah. Saturday. It was kind of a whole lot of relative nothing. And I feel like one of the things we like to do on this podcast is get into the weeds and hopefully guide you through what things mean. And I texted Steve and said, I don't know what this means. In fact, this might have maybe been written by AI. It could have been written by AI. It was that simple. As Wogo kind of called out, there was a part in here, as I control F to find it, effectively or quickly, basically mentioning we will embrace every opportunity this new model creates, is what the quote says. And that might be the most interesting bit, because as time progressed and we got to Monday, all of this news kind of started to happen that maybe Penn State is or is not being backed by a private equity firm. So that came from a Sportico article today. You had emailed me about a little bit earlier this afternoon. And their headline was Penn State, UCLA take Elevate private equity deal, $500 million college initiative. Basically, that Penn State and UCLA are now directly tied to a private equity firm. They lay out that logic a little bit more, and then a few things happen throughout the day. The next domino to fall is that UCLA issues a statement. They're a ticket partner. Haven't taken or agreed to any private equity money. Penn State also issues a pretty similar statement from Pat Kraft, which I'm now going to read as a quote. Elevate serves as our partner in ticketing strategy and operations. To clarify, our relationship is strictly limited to these services, and we have no affiliation or involvement with private equity firm or funds. And to me, once we kind of sat back and started Pepe Silva-ing all of this together in my Charlie Day style, I think Pat Kraft is telling me the truth. I don't think Penn State has taken a private equity deal. I think what has happened is Elevate, the company that Penn State is now working with for some ticketing stuff, mostly as we've been told premium, but there seems to be some indicators it might be even broader than that, and really across the whole board of ticketing and of all of athletics. Got backed by a private equity firm. They got an investment in private equity. And what private equity firms want is you to make money on the investment that they are putting out. So how are they doing that? They are maybe adjusting their contract with Penn State and UCLA, allegedly, in terms of reconfiguring that so that Penn State or UCLA could potentially access this money. But it is all money that is a, let's call it a shell game or a little bit of, not a Ponzi scheme, but feels a little bit like a Ponzi scheme but to be fair to everybody involved, this is no different than how any private equity situation would work. Whether it's a part in a car or say a marketing agency, right? Like, they want to invest in you so that you can bring them back more money, and you're going to work with a vendor, that vendor to accomplish it. So we reached out to Penn State and we actually got an answer back. We asked directly, did Penn State alter its agreement with Elevate? And we did get an answer back. That answer, however, was the Pat Kraft quote that we just read to you. Go ahead.
Are you going to be done complaining?
I'm not complaining.
Give me the rest of your context.
I'm not complaining. I want to make
Give me the rest of your context, and then I want to ask a question.
I think when you put all of the pieces together, particularly the Elevate press release that they put out, I don't want to see somebody jump the gun at Sportico. I think semantics and the nuanceness of this do matter. I don't think Penn State has a direct tie. They have a direct tie to I don't think they have a direct tie to private equity now. I think they have a direct tie to a company that needs to make money. That company is backed by private equity. And then through that company and the private equity, it's going to offer new experiences that Penn State needs to help Elevate make money back on. Okay?
I think that seems fairish from what we know and what we've tried to figure out. Both UCLA and Penn State quickly distanced themselves from the idea that private equity was being invested in their athletic departments. Quickly and similarly. I guess don't know why. I mean, if it's not true, I mean, let's say for our purposes, it's not true. If it were true, though, what is so bad about this? Like, this is the new model, right? Somebody's going to do this. A conference is going to do it. Somebody's going to say, we're going to take some outside money. Penn State has famously been, our athletic budget is separate from the university budget. We can sustain ourselves. We can do ourselves. That may not be as easy or true in the new world as it was 20 years ago. But this feels like what's the new thing to happen. What would be so bad for the schools for whom participate in it this way? Because these two schools quickly said, no, that's not us.
I'm quite surprised that you're asking me this question. Of all people are asking me this question.
But if these are the new rules, why wouldn't you be creative? This feels like a Pat Kraft aggressive move, right?
I don't disagree with it. And I think let me answer your question first. I think in general, and maybe this is just the liberalness of me, there is a concern of by a lot of people about private equity writ large. And I don't know that that's necessarily fair, but when they hear private equity, they hear, lack of a better term, Wall Street, and they just hear people that are trying to make money. And why I say that I'm surprised that you're asking this is because there is this like age-old question, particularly around Penn State's athletic department that is self-funding, right? Is like, should they be profitable or should they just be sustainable? And I think that's why I actually don't think this is a bad thing, a bad idea. Now, as I said on Twitter today, if that means that, we're going to have to pay $150 to get into a women's volleyball match, this is a bad deal. This is a bad thing, right? But I think ultimately that's why I think this is just private equity firm investing in Elevate. Elevate needs to make money to make a private equity firm, adjust the contract with Penn State and UCLA, and finds ways to make sure that they are making that money back. And I think, to your point, I don't think this is necessarily that bad of a thing. I think there are just social norms or social ideas out there that
But somebody's going to do this.
Yes.
Some athletic department somewhere is going to do this. So I guess that was, when I first saw the headline, I'm like, oh, Penn State's being an early adopter in this, right? Here's the aggressive athletic director trying new things. We're going to do everything we can do. It wasn't outside the realm of possibility. And if it's a semantics thing where, no, they were related to this company but not doing this at this level, that's fine too. I just think this is going to happen in the next couple of years somewhere. We've heard about it with conferences. We've heard about it with all kinds of stuff. And I don't know if this is the new rules of the game and how you're going to survive. I'm not in love with it, right? But I'm already paying for all, but I'm not paying for any season tickets except my wrestling, right? I've gotten rid of hockey and football because they don't need me. They have money. They can do these things, and that's great. And I think that's wonderful in the new process. We've talked about it. So this just feels like the next step for me. I don't know.
I have less qualms, issues. I mean, in a way, I have less qualms and issues about this than because of the middleman of Elevate, right? If it was Penn State directly taking private equity money, I can understand why people would be a lot more anxious about it. Because how do you maximize your return on investment as a college sports facility?
But somebody's going to do that. I mean, it's just going to get more cluttered. Who's the stakeholders are worried about? Is it, as opposed to the donors or something else?
And that's when it starts to trickle down to the fans, and that's when I get anxious. But on the same token, in a way, and I don't have the research or knowledge on this, but I can say we know that there are government contracts. We know that there are private contracts of money that go into universities for research or for whatever. Obviously, that's quite different because some of the research is life-saving and groundbreaking. College athletics is just college athletics. But I think, to your point, it isn't that uncharted of territory and uncharted of water.
No, I was a little surprised when I saw the headline. Certainly believe that's okay. We're not doing at that level. We're not doing this.
Yeah.
But this is going to be something some college does somewhere along the line. by the end of the year, I would think.
And I also think that the other concern is like the Saudi infiltration, like the Saudi money infiltration that people are generally concerned about with soccer, right? Like I think that's a big concern, and I understand that particularly with colleges. But yeah, I'm okay with this. Like I'm not thrilled by it, but I'm okay with it because it's, Jack, to your point, if it is what we think it is, and how we've laid it out, that logic of from private equity to Elevate to Penn State, as opposed to just private equity to Penn State, I think good on Pat Kraft for looking at the contract, right? Like that's been one of his MOs, is he's redone a lot of the contracts, the food contract, the ticketing contract. A lot of those contracts have changed under his era, and I think that's been part of it. So good on him.
And even if the support just makes Elevate do its job better and try to be more efficient and be more creative, and that's as much as the line of connection is, that's what you want in a partner. So
yeah, no, I think that's ultimately kind of.
I mean, I can bemoan the fact that and Wood, I don't know who the ticket person is, right? And it could be any. I mean, those days are long gone, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, I will say, it would be absolutely fascinating to explain to Bill and Linda, age 74 and 72 of York, Pennsylvania, what private equity is. Okay. Anything else you feel good about that? Anything else you want to talk about, house settlement related?
No, more will shake out. Hopefully we'll get some guests in the next couple of weeks to talk about how it's working for them. So yeah.
Perfect. Okay. All right. You ready for this surprise segment?
I have surprise segment written down, so I can't wait. I've already surprised you once with that one take, so I don't know what to do.
Yeah. All right. So I was watching Pablo Torre Finds Out. They do one of their weekly kind of just hangout episodes, and they asked a fascinating question that I now want to pass on to you, but I want to put it through the Penn State lens. They were pondering. It was him, Mina Kimes, and I forget who the third guest was, or second person was. They were pondering this question: who is the coolest sport person in sports? Like, who is the coolest athlete? And so I want to take that a step further, localize that a little bit. Who is the coolest?
Current or ever?
We can keep this open because I have a list of names over here, and it's broad and open, and it's kind of interesting because we could sit here and put a lot of different parameters on it. So I've left it broad and open, but I want to get your honest reaction. Would you like me to give some of my names?
Sure, but give me the question. So who is the coolest Penn State athlete?
Yeah. Like
and it's not ever, it's just open.
Open. All current.
Okay, give me yours because mine's not going to be on your list. So go ahead.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 names that I could feasibly come up with. Two of which are basketball players. The rest are football players.
Okay, I don't know that either one of my first two would be a football player.
Ooh,
so go ahead.
Okay, all right. The first name that came down to mind, Rosie Greer.
Okay.
For
good answer. Good old school answer from you. But
for being an actor, being Bobby Kennedy's bodyguard, and tackling Sirhan. Just an absolutely fascinating person. Hopefully one day future guest, Michael Robinson. I just think like the coolest athlete of my Penn State youth, I think.
Okay.
Was what I came up with. Maggie Lucas, probably the coolest Lady Lion ever. Like she was awesome. She was a lot of fun to watch.
Okay.
And just had like this attitude about her. Marcus Allen, probably the coolest, most recent Penn State athlete, with the famous Joe Herman image of him hovering over the pick guy and the safety. Just the Black Beetle video. The now becoming a model. I actually thought of someone else too, so I'm changing it to 7.
Okay.
Alex Bentley. Always on our podcast, just absolute swagger, just like was cool, just like cool, like was Jared Odrick, similar to Rosie Greer, doing some fascinating things, and then Miles Chamley Watson, the Olympian fencer, but also has like the Red Bull sponsorship, which is just objectively cool to have a Red Bull sponsorship.
Okay, I like Alex Bentley. Okay. There is a swagger there. There's a cool there. The first person that came to mind was Shane Conlon. Because in 86, right? Shane was it was cool. Like he was the linebacker, right? Even at linebacker he was the linebacker. And ironically enough, the also cool, but like the bad guy cool to counter Shane at the same time was Trey Bauer, right? Like there was like goody two shoes, strong linebacker, and there was a guy who was going to pop off linebacker. It felt like Shane and Trey filled those roles. I think you'd get a lot of votes for Bo Nickel in terms of cool, just in terms of attitude and maybe
I overlooked the
more so-
wrestling guys. That's for
yeah,
sure.
maybe more so than him. Maybe it's David Taylor, right? In terms of
I don't think David Taylor's cool to
No.
Penn Staters anymore. I think
well, that's true.
The
But
Oklahoma
as
State
a Penn Stater, he was, there's probably another, maybe Zane, right, with his walkout music and just being a stone cold killer out there.
Carter, I think I would put on that with the Mike Myers or Halloween.
And then when you mentioned Rosie, I went back and maybe thought of Mike Reed, right? Just because
Another name I
all
thought
all the off field stuff and gives up his career to go do some other career. So yeah, this is funny. I was thinking, we need to do like a poll thing somewhere along the line of what's the cool kid. That's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, those would be I think Shane will be top. Michael Robinson was good, is good, and I see where that fits. But I think Shane, like for me, like he just was.
Okay.
There was as a freshman, right, larger than life, like.
Sure.
To your wife's point, he's probably selling insurance or dead. If we're talking about people who are
You're bitter about that,
in
aren't
my
you?
first football game.
Yeah.
So we talked about doing something for the first football game. We reflected on our first football games, and we could do guests from our first football game as a Penn State student. And Darian's wife Anna said, "Well, from Steve's game, those people are either dead or selling insurance now." So maybe she's not wrong. I should probably go back and look and see if there's obits for those people. I'm sure Shane is alive and kicking.
Was Kerry Collins cool, or was
I wasn't.
Was he the second coolest behind Kajana Carter on that team?
See, I was working then, right? Like, so I didn't feel them as cool.
Okay.
Because I was covering them, so I don't know, and I didn't deal with them. I wasn't here.
Okay.
Like I watched from afar, so I don't know that. And that's what I was trying to think about people that I like to deal with. Like Alex was good in terms of that. Lauren Walseth was cool. Like in a just scarily honest way. Like, and then Helen Darling. Helen Darling is my favorite story from when I cover stuff. She was cool because she was unfailingly honest. I think I've told this story, but we go to the Big Ten championships. I'm covering it. They lose to Purdue in Purdue at the field house, and post game doing the interviews. And I asked a question and she like choked up and didn't finish it. And then the moderator wanted to go on the next question. She's like, no, wait, just give me a second. I want to answer that. Right. And I thought that was cool. Like as a person who was older but still doing the job, I respected that. So there was a coolness there in terms of demeanor.
I was trying to think about women's volleyball. Mike Hancock is always going to rank high on my list. She was cool. Haley Washington was cool too. Is cool.
Yeah, there were a couple of them there were several of them that had swagger there. That that's a great question.
Yeah. So okay, look at me. But I feel like we came up with a comprehensive list there, right? Like there's probably someone we're missing.
For quick whatever, but yeah, I'm sure there's a lot that are missing, and people would go on. So when you chime in, share us, and let us know. But yeah.
Okay. Old guy, young guy. In the spirit of Jack joining us, that was a cool interview. Speaking of cool,
there you
go. In the spirit of Jack joining us, Steve, your love of golf is always a love of golf, or not? Like, where are you at on golf?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm like a 5. Like if I'm with the right people in the right day, like I just actually today made plans to go out with Russ and Scott later this month, which is going to be cool. Like that'll be fun. Maybe if I was better, it'd be more enjoyable, right? So yeah, if I golfed more, it'd be better. I enjoy playing with my brother. My brother's very good, but I enjoy playing with him because you can enjoy how good he is while you're with him, right? Like, be like, oh, he did a good job. That's really like, God, he's good. And then you also get the brother moments where I'll hit something and he'll be like, what the hell was that? Yeah. Right? Like, what, or like he'll be supportive for a hole or two, and then I'll do something like, Jesus, you need a better club. Yeah. And I love that. Like I if that happens once or twice a summer, if we're lucky, I think that's great. Okay. Like I get to appreciate his greatness, and then I also get to get bitched at for my non-greatness.
You get out, but you golf much more frequently than I do because I haven't played.
It'll be twice this summer.
But I haven't gone in 3 years. I don't think I haven't gone to a course in 3 years. I think I went to the driving range maybe last year once. Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm lucky, it'll be twice. Like I'll get the Scott and Russ outing, and maybe I could talk Jeff into doing one somewhere along the line, and maybe there's a third, but 2 times.
I have realized that I enjoy the driving range because I just love just thwacking a ball. Like I think that is more fun than getting frustrated about it going this way or like just grip it and rip it, you know? So I haven't been, like I said, I don't think I've played a round of golf in probably 3 years, but I have gone to the driving range as recently as I believe last year. And like, it's just a good way to get out some energy. So
Topgolf,
like Topgolf. Do like Topgolf. I think it's. I very much enjoyed the aspect of like this is how far the ball went, and you can see like how far the ball went. And there's like a gaming aspect to it, but you're still kind of sort of at the driving range, just trying to hit the ball as hard as possible. And or I do like when you like trying to hit the big hole like kind of closer to you with an iron, right? Like because that's like a challenge, but it's like a little bit more forgiving that if I hit it to the left a little bit or to the right a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think I had an appreciation for how good. I mean, I watched some golf on TV. I don't know if I had an appreciation how good golfers were until I was working. I actually covered the U.S. Open, the Friday round, which was Arnold Palmer's last round at Oakmont, in 94, which was also the O.J. Chase day. Like that was that day, right? I don't know that I had an appreciation until I was inside the ropes and saw people doing some stuff that were really good, and maybe some that still weren't as good, but I was like, oh, wow, that's how this game's supposed to be played. And that heightened my appreciation for it too.
I do think I have lost the ability to watch golf on TV, or at least intently watch golf on TV. It might be just because of the fact that I have a cell phone and 1,200 other distractions, but that to me is something I do feel like I've lost, but I still enjoy golf. Like I think it's fun. Like I think it's fun. I wish it was a lot more accessible. And that's one of the problems. I was just talking to my neighbor about this, actually. That is one of the problems down here is like a round that you would pay for up in Pennsylvania is $20 at minimum more expensive down here. It's just not cheap. And that's annoying. That's the annoying aspect of golf. Okay. That's this week's podcast. I don't know what I'll write about this week. I do think I think I have it planned for maybe next week. I will have to look. We do have a survey coming out. I wanna find out what people's Penn State football game day superstitions are. We're gonna talk about those. Yeah.
Nice.
Anything from you?
I got the whiteout thing coming because I think my math works finally.
Okay, proud of you. I know you've been doing a lot of math lately. You've been between the numbers you sent me over the weekend and
see.
Hey, speaking of math, we surpassed 100,000 views all time on the blog. Pretty recently. I don't know when specifically, but some point in May. So proud of us for having people that read us. Okay. Yeah, we'll see what goes on this week. I might write about the private equity thing. I don't know. I'm not fired up.
Yeah, I was there for a little bit, and then when they walked it back, I'm not as much, and the whiteout thing is safe. So
I think
watch for that.
I think it just, like I said, I think it feels. I kind of trust what's happening for once. Not that I offer to. Okay. That was this week's podcast. Thank you to Jack for joining us. Be sure to check out all of his stuff. He's a great Twitter follow. He's truly a great Twitter follow. That was fun. Website's called stuffsummersays.com. On that website, there's a section called With Steve. We have emails. Mine's Darian at stuffsummersays.com. Steve's is
Steve at stuffsummersays.com.
Perfect. 5 stars, thumbs up. Like it, subscribe to it. We really appreciate that. Yeah. Other than that, you can find me on the internet at Stuff Summer Says. You can find Steve
at Steve Samsel.
See ya. Bye.